Hello class, this is a video tutorial on present simple. It's actually part one of the tutorial because it's divided in two parts: affirmative sentences on the one hand and questions and negative sentence on the other. So I hope you get something out of it. Let's see, present simple. We use present simple to talk about what we normally do, and I emphasize the word normally. Um, for example, I can say that I work in two universities. I can say that I teach Portuguese. I can say that my mother stays at home usually during the day, and so on and so forth. It's different when I talk about what I am doing right now. I am speaking to you, I am recording this video, etc. Right? That would be a present continuous, and that's an entirely different story. Um, this is present simple, and it's mostly used for the things that we normally do to talk about habits, etc. It's what we use when, for instance, we talk about our friend's daily routine, which was one of the activities that we worked on this semester. Um, let's talk about, now that we know that when we use, or in which cases we use present simple. Let's talk about the form of present simple. Uh, Present simple is a lot easier in English. In Spanish, it's actually difficult because Spanish is one of those languages where you actually have to conjugate verb, and depending on the person, there's a different conjugation for each verb, and that makes things really difficult. That doesn't happen in English, and normally we use the same form for all first, second, and third persons, but there are exceptions, of course. So on the first example, we see that the persons I, you, we, they all use the verb work in its simplest form, right? I work, you work, we work, they work, etc. That does not happen with third person singular, with he, she, it, with Mary, with John, etc. In that case, I need to actually conjugate the verb. I need to actually add something. In this case, I add the letter S, and I end up with something like she works, he works, etc. Right? To make things even more complicated, that's not always the case. Sometimes instead of adding an extra S, I'm gonna need to add an extra ES, and that will become an extra syllable actually. So in cases of when the verb finishes in letters SH, CH, double S, in the letter O, in the letter X, that's when I add the extra ES, right? So that happens with the verb teach, um, which is supposed to be pronounced like she teaches, he teaches, it teaches in third person singular, right? In first person or in second or in plural, that I don't need to worry because it's just I teach, you teach, we teach, etc. And finally, we have a case where we need to add the letter I, and we need to change it. We need to change the letter Y and change it for a letter I and add the extra ES. So when a verb finishes in letter Y and is preceded by a consonant, I do that. So let me clarify this, right? Lots of verbs finish with letter Y. Let's think of the verbs play, stay, cry, try, carry, etc. Right? So I do not always do the same thing when it comes to third person singular. In some cases, I just add the letter S, like plays, for example, right? But that doesn't happen all the time. I need to pay attention to what type of letter comes before letter Y. In the case of play, which is spelled Play, it's letter A that comes before the Y, and that's a vowel. So when a vowel is placed before the Y, I just add the extra S like I did with for work. Uh, if the verb is preceded by a consonant, like letter R in carry, I need to change the letter Y for the letter I and add ES, right? And even though I'm adding three letters, the pronunciation doesn't change that much, and it's still one syllable. And that's something rather strange. But remember that English pronunciation and English spelling, they do not always go hand in hand, right? So, well, that's an entirely different story. So let's keep focused on this. So those are the different endings I use, and well, now I know when I use each one of them. Class, let's practice a little bit. As usual, I like to make these videos not only theoretical but also practical. So in this particular case, we have a bunch of sentences, and only one thing is missing, and that's the verb. The verb is already in parentheses in each sentence, but I haven't conjugated them. So that's what we need to do. We need to decide whether we're going to leave the verb as it is. Obviously, we need to drop the particle to because that's an infinitive. That we're or if we're going to add an extra s, an extra es, or an extra ies. Well, so let's stop the video right here and let's see if you can solve it. Class, I hope you got something like this. I like lemonade. The girls always listen. When it comes to Janet, Janet is a woman, so is she, right? So Janet never wears. Mr. Smith teaches. I hope you remember that the verb that finishes with ch is supposed to have es at the end, right? There was a little trap with verb to be. Hopefully, you didn't fall for it, and you didn't write anything like "she be 6 years old" or anything like that. Hopefully, you remember that verb to be is special, and you gotta do it properly. And in this particular case, is she is. She is 6 years old. If you don't know how to, if verb to be is still giving you problems, well, you gotta go back to the tutorial on verb to be. And Simon, the next sentence, that was also a trick because I actually forgot to explain that we have one exception when it comes to ending. So in the case of the verb have, it's not enough to add an extra s, a letter s to the end of the verb, and have something like haves. No, that does not exist. So in the case of third person singular with verb have, we need to change have for the word has, and that's what we end up with. And obviously, the final sentence, the baby cries, we have the verb cry, but it's preceded by a consonant, consonant R, so we change it. That didn't happen when we talked about Tanya. In the case of Tanya, it was the verb play, and that's preceded by a vowel. So not only an an extra s it was necessary. Class, that's it for this video. I hope you got something out of it. If you still have problems with this, you just have to Google present simple affirmative sentence and present simple affirmative sentences exercises, and well, you're gonna have tons of websites where you can practice this. Bye.